everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today I just finished watching episode 15 of The Bad Batch Season 3, the series finale. This is it. It's over. No more Bad Batch. It's over. And yeah, we get our big breakout from Mount Tantus. The crew is trying to get in. Omega and the kids are trying to get out. We got Echo in there with, what's her name? Emery, trying to help them get to the vaults where Omega's being held. And of course, like we saw last episode, Omega's plan is to free the Zillo Beast, which she does end up doing, and it works pretty well. I kind of thought the Zillo Beast would hang out like more in this episode. It does, a decent amount of destruction. It's a good distraction, and it ultimately just like creates a giant hole in the place that the crew can just walk right in. But it kind of just walks off into the woods, and then we don't see it again. I've kind of figured it would be like a thing that sits around and destroys the base, and then they have to, like, it's like an obstacle they have to get around to get out or something. But no, Zillo Beast it's just kind of there, and then it's free, and then they have other things to deal with, because now of course Omega uses this opportunity to escape, and all the kids are leaving, and so now they're the ones being hunted. Yeah, they do end up activating some other clones that had been, I guess assassin clones. Ones that had been reprogrammed. They all got the same like black armor and helmet, and they all kind of look different but have a different like style weapon, and they're pretty cool. And I will say, and I know there's gonna be some people disappointed by this, there's no big reveals here, like a lot of people were kind of like, one of those assassin troopers is actually gonna be Tech, or it's gonna be Cody, or it's gonna be so on and so forth, and they got a mask on, and so everyone wants to see what's underneath the mask, right? Which is kind of ironic because they're all clones, so like, we technically already know what all of them look like. But yeah, there's no big reveals. There's no like, oh, this was actually a character we all thought was dead the whole time. But yeah, they're just assassins. They're pretty cool, and I'm sure we're going to get those action figures, and the crew... Honestly, the crew kind of gets whooped by them pretty quickly. So, it's up to Echo to free a bunch of other clones that are being held there, and they'll have to fight against all these other clones, these like hyper advanced ones. And yeah, it's, it's a pretty cool fight. There's some pretty cool action, and I'm sure we're gonna like, we'll see other things from these clones maybe being used at some point. I don't know. But yeah, they're all kind of taken care of, and there's just, yeah, that's the thing, there's just no reveal. There's just no like, which I think is maybe for the best, like not letting Tech's death be like your classic Star Wars, like, oh, but they weren't really dead and now they're evil, right? It's like, let it be a death, you know what I mean? Because a lot of people complain about death not being permanent in Star Wars sometimes, and this time it was. It's permanent. He's gone. He's not coming back. It happened. You know what I mean? So, a lot of people are going to be sad about that, but I think that was probably the right choice ultimately. Let's see. So, and then we have. What's her name? Nala Se. Nala Se is there, and of course Rampart he got captured last episode, so he gets freed, and Nala Se and Rampart are going around the facility, and Nala Se is like, I'm gonna go take out all that data, because Omega, you're never actually gonna be a free person as long as Hemlock is alive and knows who you are, and all this data is still here, because ultimately they'll be able to just come to the same conclusion that Hemlock came to about how important Omega is. So we need to take out both of those things. So she's gonna go take out all this data. She's about to erase it, and Hemlock, of course, man, you kind of hoped that maybe he would like have at least a partial redemption, or at least a little bit of like a, hey, the Empire sucks, I don't want to be on these guys' teams. But no, instead he demands to know what Project Necromancer is at gunpoint. And his plan is to use it as a bargaining chip, but of course Nala Se, being actually really cool, which is kind of funny because in Clone Wars I believe she was the one who did all the shady stuff with that ultimately ended up in Five's death. So she wasn't always so cool, but now she's cool. She of course had a thermal detonator on her, so the second that Rampart did the stupid thing and shot her, thinking that like, oh, I'm gonna take this data and use it as a bargaining chip to, I don't know, get back into the Empire. I guess that was his plan. She drops the thermal detonator that she had activated in her hand, destroying all the data and killing Rampart. So, you know, that Nala Se went out really cool. That was like a cool way to go out. I think she fully redeemed herself. That's my thing, you know, like, and she even like had like this ending line of like, my research will never belong to you or the Empire. It will belong to Kamino, you know, like it will be Kaminoan, and then boom, everything explodes. So like it was just a cool way to go out, you know, like they destroyed, you know, at least that one city in Kamino, if not all the cities in Kamino. So there you go. She got to blow up all the work that she had done for them. And yeah, basically the crew is able to get out of there. They defeat all these like enhanced clones. The data is destroyed. They have a standoff with Hemlock. They're able to, you know, he's got Omega at gunpoint, which of course he's not gonna kill Omega because he needs her. That's like the whole point. So they do end up, you know, Crosshair's able to have his like redeeming like sharpshooter moment, able to shoot those cuffs. That way when they shoot Rampart over the edge, or not Rampart, sorry, when they shoot Hemlock over the edge, you know, he falls, Omega's fine, they have their big reunion, and then they kind of just get out of there, and that's pretty much it. Like honestly, like they, you know, like the facility is destroyed, Tarkin is coming, so by the time Tarkin shows up, everything's already destroyed. Hemlock's already dead, everyone's already dead, the crew is gone, you know, they all go back to Pabu, I think that's the name of that island planet. And the clones are gonna like all resettle in different areas, and they're all gonna like get to adapt to life and be, you know, they get to live life. And that's kind of, you know, we get something that we don't get very often in Star Wars, is an actual like peaceful ending, you know, like an ending where like, hey, everything kind of worked out, and at least for, you know, a decent handful of years they got to just live a life and be normal, and they didn't have to keep on fighting, you know, especially the batch here, right? Like they kind of just, they got to retire, you know, which is good because, like, you know, literally since the time they were born, they were like being bred to train and fight, and now they actually don't have to just keep on going until they die. Like they actually got to retire. I will say this: we don't see Rex or Wolf or Gregor or any of the stuff that we're gonna see in Rebels. We don't see any of them here, which is a little disappointing because, you know, we saw them earlier in the season and we kind of thought we had it set up to where they'd give him a phone call, and they even like brought up that option this episode, and they end up not doing it. So it was like, dang, I kind of wish that they were gonna show up or something and, you know, save the day or something, but no, they don't show up at all. And yeah, ultimately what we end up with is, you know, we do like a flash forward. Omega is now an adult. You know, we don't know how many years forward. I guess we could probably say it's like a decade or so. The rebellion is formed, right? And so if this takes place immediately after Empire, we got about, you know, 19 years before A New Hope starts. So, you know, we could jump ahead like a decade and say that that's when this is happening. I don't know. Everyone is still alive. That's the good thing, you know, like Hunter, Wrecker, Crosshair, even Batcher, you know, even their dog is still alive. So like they, you know, we get like a peaceful ending. There wasn't like a tragic death really. You know, like everyone just kind of got like a really cool resolution here. And Omega is gonna go join the Empire. She's like, or not the, I'm sorry, the Rebellion. She's not gonna join the Empire. She wants to go join the Rebellion, saying like, oh, they need pilots now more than ever, and you know, it's her decision. And she, you know, like, you guys can rest. You guys had your fights, and this is my fight. You know, like, this is my generation's fight. You know, I'm an adult now. I'm gonna go fight for the Rebellion. So there's obviously the option of seeing future Omega stuff in, you know, the Rebellion era of Star Wars. She's still around, and she's gonna be a pilot, and you know what I mean? So like, easily they could put her somewhere in there. They could introduce her into the Mandalorian stuff that's, you know, obviously post Return of the Jedi, so she's still around. That's the good thing, right? Like, she was active just off screen, like so many characters. So she's there somewhere. And yeah, ultimately, like, we get like a happy ending, and we don't get many of those, so I am grateful for that. I will say, kind of like one of my biggest disappointments, we do not see anything about the vats on Mount Tantus, like what the Palpatine vats were. Is it Snoke? Is it Palpatine clones? Is it Palpatine's son? Is it this? Is it that? We never find out. I was like, dang it, that's like the one thing. Like, I know it's still there in the facility, like they don't show that being destroyed, but man, that's like the one thing I really was hoping we were gonna get before they escape from this place. They were gonna show us like a quick shot, or maybe we'd get an epilogue where Palpatine shows up to check up on the vats or something, but no, nothing. So I don't know, they tease Project Necromancer a couple times. Even Rampart gets Project Necromancer explained to him off screen, you know, like they do that thing where like, explain to me what this is, and then they cut away to a different scene, and then they come back and he's like, oh, that was useful to know, you know. So we don't get to know. Obviously we all have a pretty good idea of what Project Necromancer is supposed to be, right? But the fact that they won't just say it on screen, it's a little frustrating. You know, it's a little like, just say it. Like, we pretty much know what it is. We pretty much could take a wild guess what's in those vats. But the fact that you're not just showing us, and we know that this is the series finale, so it's not like you're saving this for another season of the show to reveal later or anything like that. And also the facility is destroyed, so it's like, you know, the most I can see happening here is that in a future comic book or a novel, they go to the ruins of Mount Tantus and they open up the vaults and they find some things in the debris, and they're like, oh look, it is a Palpatine clone or something, you know. Like, that's the most I can see us getting out of this. And you know, something like that wouldn't happen until years from now, you know. So I don't know, it is kind of frustrating, you know, like that. I will say that if you're disappointed that there was not a big reveal, or there wasn't like a big, like, you know, Project Necromancer thing, that they just confirmed what it is. I mean, we all know what it is, but they didn't like say it. It is, you know, I understand that it's frustrating. Like, I totally get it. You know, I think you're justified in being a little frustrated. But you know what? We got a happy ending. You know, I think on an emotional level for the crew, this was a great ending. You know what I mean? Like, we don't get many like actual happy, solid, everyone got to live their lives kind of endings. We don't really get that. But as far as a Star Wars lore, like, you know, give me all those good Easter eggs and the cameos and the references and the reveals and, you know, all that Star Wars stuff that us nerds love to like analyze and think about. I will say it's a little disappointing on that front. We did, you know, we didn't get a Rex cameo or any of that crew. They don't show up. There's no reveals of the vat. None of those assassins are revealed to be Cody or Tech or anything that we knew before. You know, so it is just kind of like they go into the Mount Tantus, they get Omega out, they escape, the bad guys die, the data is destroyed, and everyone lives happily ever after, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much what happens. So, okay. Look, as a series finale for this show, for this crew, I think it works really well. But, I don't know, just like I said, it's like from a lore standpoint, from like a nerd who like really loves all those like little references and Easter eggs and reveals and things that I can connect this show to the other movie, to the other show, to the other movie, and, you know, I can connect all these lines together and be like, I know exactly what Project Necromancer is, and, you know, this happened at this point in the timeline, which means this happened over here on Exegol, which means this happened over here in The Mandalorian, you know, like all that stuff. I will say it's kind of disappointing in that way, because like we don't get any of that, you know, and I was kind of hoping at least for a crumb, like a tiny bit, you know. I don't need all my things fulfilled, but like you could have given me like a little tiny thing, you know, like give me a little mention, but no, we don't get it, and that's okay. I'll say, you know, as a show on a whole, like if I had to judge The Bad Batch entirely, I would say like, okay, the show worked really hard on making you emotionally attached to the crew and getting you to care about these characters specifically, and it did a great job at that. But it did often, I would say, spin its wheels, you know, like you know, they'd have entire episodes where seemingly not much, if anything, was accomplished plot-wise, you know, and you'd have to wait a week to get to the next episode, and you're like, when are they going to get back to like the main plot of the show? So I will say it kind of suffers from that a little bit, and also while you occasionally get those golden episodes where some big reference is made, it doesn't happen nearly as much as you kind of hope it would happen. I feel like Star Wars Rebels was much better in this regard, as far as like, hey, here's a cameo, here's a reference, here's a setup for something later. You know, in Rebels, it feels like had that in abundance, whereas this show, they kind of took a step back from that, and they focus much more on getting you emotionally attached to these characters, which is fine. It's just a different, you know, it's a different kind of show. When they were writing it, they clearly had like different things in mind. They cared much more about the characters here than they did about making references to things, which, okay, fine, fair enough. But, you know, then you do have to ask, like, well, where was Rex? And you brought Asajj in here and you confirmed she's alive, but then she never comes back. So then you got to start wondering, like, well, so then why'd you bother? You know, like stuff like that. Like that. Now I'm asking all these questions. I don't know. That's just me. In any case, look, The Bad Batch, it's a great show. It's got great moments. But, you know, I think if you're a little frustrated, I understand. I totally get it. I'm also just a tiny bit frustrated. I'm like, man, I just wanted like a little bit more. Just like a little extra punch to it. And we didn't quite get that in the finale. It was satisfying, but not as much as it could have been. I was like, it could have given me like a tiny little nibble of like, oh look, it's Snoke, bum bum bum, you know, like that would have been like, whoa, you know. But oh well. Anyways, that's the Bad Batch series finale. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.